All right, so like I said, this is a follow-up discussion time for the Creation Appreciation series that we did a few weeks ago as we read good Bible verses and heard good thoughts about how all of creation was made by God, is a gift from God, is an expression of God. And so if we are to honor God in our lives, then we should honor that which is an expression of God's love and creativity and a physical expression of the Lord in the world. Like any master craftsman or artisan, their works, their art, the things they build and spend time on are expressions of themselves. So we recognize that all of creation is an expression of God, as God has made all of it. And we talked about how when we talk about creation, that includes us too, because we are indeed creatures that God has made, so we are part of that created creation. First, I want to make available this handout. It's What Does the Bible Say About Caring for Creation? It's got front and back, lots of Bible verses, maybe like 30 different Bible verses that talk about nature and creation. So if you didn't get one a few weeks ago, Brian will walk around. If you didn't get one or you lost it, just raise a hand and Brian will give it out to you. A great way to structure a quiet time or a devotional time that you might have. Just look up all those verses. Maybe pick, 4 or 5 each day and look them up and see what they say. See if you are familiar with them and see if there are some that you are unfamiliar with, and think about what they have to say for you and for all of us today. In a minute, we'll be reading from Psalm 24. If you want to turn there, I will read all of Psalm 24 in a minute. And to start off with, I wanted to ask you all a question that I ran out of time to ask when we finished up this series a few weeks ago. It was a question that Sam came up with for our big question discussion group one week. Sam likes to start the time with a little question to just kind of get our connecting going, and then he'll lead up to a bigger question. Thank you, Brian. So here was the little question that Sam came up with, and I put it on our midweek handout a couple weeks ago. So I want to hear what you think. What is your favorite plant, like a tree, a flower, etc., either in general or a specific one? So while you think and chuckle, I will share what my answer is. Ever since I was a kid, I loved honeysuckle, because me and my friends in our little cul-de-sac, it was like just a free snack that God had given us, and it was pretty and it smelled so lovely, and you can just take it out and just have just a little taste of honey. I just thought that's amazing that there's this delicious and beautiful snack just right there. So we'd go through about 5 or 10 just hanging out in the woods as you do. So I've always loved the honeysuckle plant, and if there was one like specific tree specifically a tree, it was in my grandparents' yard in central Louisiana, where I grew up and where my grandparents lived. They had this big magnolia tree. It was not close to their house or gutters or roof like ours was. It was out in the bottom of their yard, and it was perfect for climbing. So me and my cousins, like magnolia trees, they got big round branches, they're close to the ground, and so we would just climb and get way too high. And it just kind of represents for me all the fun times that I spent with my cousins just outside in my grandparents' yard and beyond. There was a lake with ducks and just all kinds of bushes to get scratched up by. So that's my answers. What are your answers? What's your favorite plant, tree, flower? What you got there, Dan?
Maple tree outside of our kitchen window at my home in Marshall. Daddy put a picnic table there, and we spent a lot of time under it.
Oh, that's great. Picnic table under a maple tree right outside the house. Excellent. Ray.
This sounds like a fairy tale, but it's absolutely true.
Okay. Don't believe it.
and dug out a place for almost a mile,
No way.
which became White Lake. It's a beautiful, crystal clear white lake.
Okay.
And kids that visit everything. Now, about the plant, believe it or not, there is a Johnny come lately, a little plant that's called the Venus flytrap.
Uh-huh.
And believe it or not, it's a pretty little plant, but don't get close to it because it will snap, yes, it will snap too.
Okay.
It's called the Venus flytrap.
Yeah,
Now,
fun choice.
where it came from, nobody knows. In fact, they call it the Venus flytrap.
Uh-huh.
But there are those who believe that it came in with that meter.
Oh,
And it really did come from somewhere else, that we've never been plants like that here, that a plant will actually eat something new.
Oh, maybe so. Maybe so.
So,
Fun choice. Venus flytrap, Robson County. Crystal Lake, you said? White Lake, Crystal Lake?
yes, it's really a
White Lake?
little further north from Robinson County.
Okay.
Suffolk County, I'm not sure the county.
Blake,
Blake, okay.
Okay.
Blake County.
Very fun choice, very fun choice. Others, favorites?
My favorite flower is a pansy, and my mother always planted them in the little rows right in front of our house, and as a kid, I always thought they looked like little happy faces.
I like that, the happy faces of the pansies.
Yeah.
It's like, creation is smiling.
Right, so I always plant pansies every fall because of that.
That's lovely. I love it. Smiling faces. Yes, Ms. Wilson.
Before I tell you what my favorite plant is, Art Linkletter was interviewing children.
Uh-huh, yeah, they say the darndest things.
They do,
Uh-huh.
and sometimes they speak truth.
Uh-huh.
But he asked this little boy, he looked like he was about 4 or 5, he said, "What do you think heaven smells like?" And the little boy, just like that, said strawberries.
Oh.
So I agree, and
Good
that is
choice.
my favorite.
Oh, excellent choice.
Yeah.
Excellent choice. Excellent choice. Joe.
I have too many favorite trees.
Fair.
Beautiful white oaks, they make good furniture. Cherry also.
Uh-huh.
A plant would be a wild strawberry.
Mm.
Have you ever tasted a wild strawberry in the woods?
No. No.
It has a most distinct strawberry taste that, I've ever encountered.
Oh, wow.
So it's a big food.
Excellent choice. I lament how our fruits that you get in the grocery store don't taste like the real fruits that grow naturally in the world like they used to. It's nice to get them no matter the season and no matter where in the world they come from, but I don't think they're as good as God made them naturally, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Other ones, any others that you love? Oh, yeah,
Apples.
apples.
Oh, I
Excellent
love 'em.
choice. Me too. Me too.
Like, we'd go to the apple orchard down out of Asheville there, and pick them and bring them home.
Oh, that's lovely.
Oh, it
Apples,
was me and
always a
Mom and
great
Dad.
snack. Perfect.
Yeah.
Great snack. Love it, love it, love it. Well, I wanted to ask that question, one, just for fun, and two, to celebrate the love that we all have for the plants and the trees of nature that God has made in so many neat varieties and how they can give us delight in so many neat ways. And I want to read Psalm 24 so that we can listen on how we should be motivated or inspired to act. So, here is Psalm 24. The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. For he founded it upon the seas and established it upon the waters. Who may ascend the hill of the Lord? Who may stand in his holy place? It is he who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not lift up his soul to an idol or swear by what is false. He will receive blessing from the Lord and vindication from God his Savior. Such is the generation of those who seek him, who seek your face, O God of Jacob. Lift up your heads, O you gates, Be lifted up, you ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O you gates. Lift them up, you ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is he, this King of glory? It's the Lord Almighty. He is the King of glory. So, what does that psalm say to you? Especially those first 4, 5, and 6 verses, which then inspire the praise singing of verses 7 through 10. So what does that psalm say to you? Yes, Ray.
Wasn't that what the temple was used when the priest would come out and the congregation would be there? And it's a two-part thing where he would say, the person asking the question, the congregation would answer him, and they'd make a worship service out of this.
That makes sense. I can see that. I don't know if this particular psalm is one of those, but I can see that it could be. Yeah. That this would have been used in worship as an invitation from a worship leader and then a response from the congregation. Mm-hmm. So what does that psalm say to you? How can it challenge people or guide people in their mindset, their understanding, their behavior? The earth is the Lord and everything, Lord's and everything in it. What do you think of it, Dan?
If it's the Lord, you need to take care of it. for
Sure.
future generations.
Yes. If the earth is the Lord's, and I'm going to turn the air conditioner up for me and you.
Thank you.
It's hard when it's the fall. Sometimes it's cool, sometimes it's hot.
He really needs to turn it down.
I mean, yes, I'm going to turn the intensity up. Yeah. It didn't say the earth is ours. We know that the Genesis 2 story, in Genesis 1, it says that God gave us the responsibility to care for the earth. Yes, that's a big job. But here, Psalm 24, it says the earth is the Lord's. It's everything in it. That means it's not ours. That means we are, it's like we're in somebody else's house. We might have used that analogy a few weeks ago.
It said we were a guest.
That's right.
Didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're a guest in someone else's house, are you going to make a mess? Are you going to dirty up all the furniture? If you find out that you've broken something, let's say you find out you've broken the well, now the water's dirty. Well, okay, nobody's perfect, we all make mistakes, but if you're at somebody's house, you break something, you say, what do I need to do to make it right? What do I need to do to fix this? I didn't mean to, I wasn't trying to break it. The earth is the Lord's. What else? How can this psalm challenge or guide people in their understanding or behavior? When I was reading verse 3, and it asked the question, who may ascend the hill of the Lord? And then in verse 4, it says, it's he who has clean hands and a pure heart. Verse 5, who will receive blessing? And then verse 6, it's a generation of those who seek him, who seeks your face, O God of Jacob. So when I connect those verses with verse 1, it's asking me who can ascend the Lord, who can have a pure heart. Well, it's the ones who recognize the truth of verse 1, that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. And so, to me, with those verses coming back to back, they're connected. And if we want to be someone who can ascend the hill of the Lord and kind of spiritually approach the Lord's presence, if we want to have clean hands and a pure heart, if we want to receive blessing from the Lord, I feel like we need to recognize what verse 1 is saying. Those verses are in this one psalm for a reason. They must have been connected to the psalm writer. It says a psalm of David. So having clean hands and a pure heart it feels to me like it must be connected to recognizing that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, which means we then should respect it. And if we make a mess in God's living room, we definitely want to clean it up. So, when it comes to taking care of God's house, if indeed the earth is the Lord's, and we have been given stewardship of it, the responsibility to care for it, when it comes to taking care of God's world, is there an aspect of that responsibility that is maybe the most important to you? There are different ways that we can respect God's creation, take care of it, be mindful of it. Is there one way that stands out to you as extra important? Is there some practice you have in mind or some aspect of caring for the world that stands out to you?
Not to be wasteful.
Not to be wasteful. That's a great one. That's a great one. Yeah. Yeah. That is.
Not to throw trash on the road.
Yeah.
Anybody can avoid that.
Yeah, yeah. Not to be a litter bug and just throw trash around. Yeah. If the earth is the Lord's, we wouldn't want to go in the Lord's house and just take the trash out of the trash can and start spraying it. Yeah. Other ones. Yeah, yeah.
Get this one in my mind often, is to trust in the Lord and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. So, know about what God has for you. I guess is what I'm thinking.
And if we connect those good verses from Proverbs with this psalm, lean not on your own understanding to do whatever you want to with the earth, but in all of your ways and all of your actions and all of your priorities, acknowledge Him, acknowledge the Creator and what the Creator has made, and let that direct the paths of action that you take in terms of how you see the world around us. Other aspects of taking care of creation or nature that are kind of important to you? Things that you do?
May not be the most popular thing, but bring into correction those who abuse it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, we are stewards of this, and
Yeah.
if we see someone abusing what God gave us, we should say something.
Yeah, yeah. Since we have been given the responsibility to care for it, if we see somebody else trashing it, dumping trash out on the road or wasting the resources that God has given us, then we should do our job. We've been called to do this job. Yeah. And something that I think Ann said earlier about preserving the earth for future generations kind of meant more to me after my wife gave birth to some future generations that were then my offspring, and kind of then thinking about, well, gosh, what kind of place do I want them to live in? What kind of water or air or land or trash on the road do I want them to endure or not? Mm-hmm. Well, as we think about the work of taking care of God's world as stewards of this beautiful house that we get to be guests in, what makes you hopeful about the work of caring for creation? Sometimes it's easy to get pessimistic about it. Sometimes it's easy to get down if we see other people misusing resources or making a mess, being wasteful of what God has given to us. It can be easy to become downcast. So let's encourage each other. What makes you hopeful about the work of caring for creation?
Our children are being educated. college children now are being educated about what the results of not taking care
Yeah,
will be.
yeah. I think they're learning a little more than kind of I did in previous generations about what effects different things can have on how clean the water is, how clean the air is. And I'm glad they are, because they're the ones who are gonna be living in it. Mhm. What else gives you hope about the work of caring for God's creation?
I think we have progressed, unbelievably regarding care of the French Broad River. There also used to be plants all up and down the river,
Yeah,
and they were built there for reason of getting rid of their waste. And that's been kind of done away with, and hopefully will be better in the future for that purpose.
I hope so too. And how sad is it that, isn't it one of the oldest rivers in the world? And that so many companies and corporations thought, oh, that'd be a great place to dump our nasty sewage and all of our chemical waste. We'll just dump it in there. Well, that's so sad. I remember when I moved here and we had some friends visiting, and I was coming up with fun things we could do. And I saw like the tubing on the French Broad River. And so I told someone else, oh, I think I'm gonna go tubing on the French Broad this weekend. And he's a local, and he said, oh, I would never do that. Oh, no, because he knew the history of how dirty it was. And he said, if you're gonna do it, make sure you don't have any open wounds, make sure you don't get it in your, all that kind of, so it freaked me out, and I had to find some websites that track the water quality of our river day to day, so that I could feel maybe okay about taking my kids to go float on it. And that's so sad that it has been the case, but it does give me hope that the people of our county said, we should do better. And kind of like Ms. Wilma said earlier, I assume it took some people to say, hey, we've been dropping the ball on our responsibility to care for this beauty. We should put a stop to harmful behavior and try to fix it. Other things that give you hope? I do try to give grace for us, for all people, because you don't know until you know. You don't know something until you know it. So I try not to blame anybody for not knowing something if they don't know it. Now, if they insist on continuing in their ignorance, such that it harms others, that's when I'll start wagging my finger. But we have learned things about what our, behaviors and waste and chemicals, some of these chemicals haven't been around very long, and we didn't know what they might do. And turns out some of them, might cause holes in the ozone layer or pollute the rivers. And so hopefully when we learn that, we can say, okay, we're learning more each day. Now we're learning about testing water quality. We can monitor that. So that gives me hope that we are learning and that we are trying to fix things that we messed up. When my boys were little, kids are always, they're gonna break something or make a mess. It's just the nature of the beast. And I would say, when you break something or make a mess, it's gonna happen. Here's what you do. 1, tell somebody, like me or mom or a babysitter or something. And 2, help fix it. You're gonna break something, you're gonna make a mess. It's gonna happen. So when you do, 1, tell somebody, and 2, try and fix it. Yeah, I think that applies to all of us. We might not have known what different chemicals would do. We might not have known about, maybe nobody thought about the effects of deforestation on the oxygen levels in the atmosphere, or what mountaintop removal would do to sludge and like mudslides into communities of Appalachia. You know, maybe nobody thought about that ahead of time. Maybe they should have thought about it ahead of time, but maybe they didn't know then. So once we learned, tell somebody, everybody, that was my bad. I removed that mountaintop looking for coal. I'm sorry that it caused a mudslide that ruined your community. That's on me. And then try and fix it. What can we do? How can we make the French Broad cleaner? What do we need to do to fix it? So that gives me hope. As we're all learning, then we can all adjust our behavior and we can improve our world. According to the Christian biologist Cal DeWitt, which we saw in that documentary, he was the one where he and his wife would take their grandkids out into like the marsh, and they were catching little wiggly critters in the marsh, and he talked about the monarch butterflies. He's big on the act of beholding, and he says that the act of beholding offers Christians an opportunity to get better at loving God and loving our neighbors. So let's think about that for a minute. What does it mean to behold? What's the difference between beholding and just looking at something? What's the difference? Beholding versus just looking at something.
You embrace it.
You embrace it.
You embrace something, there's action behind it.
Okay. So there's like that implies a connection. That it almost like it pulls you in some way. If not physically, then spiritually, or an investment. That's great. That's great. Beholding. What does it mean? How's it different from just looking at something?
In awe.
Yes. That you're affected. Yes.
I get excited when I see a rainbow. I just
Yeah. Oh, good. You should be.
And that's the way with many features that we experience in nature.
Yeah. I think
And I
we
see a bird in the bush outside my window. Oh, look, and my rabbit.
I think that's wonderful. I think we should all get excited when we see a rainbow or a bird in the bushes. When we were doing the church in the park on Sunday, and I was kind of talking about letting things out, being open to what you're experiencing, and we talked about kind of the most beautiful places we've been to, like John Rock near Brevard, or the Cliffs of Ireland, or Chuck said Ocracoke Island, the most beautiful places you've been to. And I said, what if you went to those places and all you did was like scroll on your phone? What would you get out of that experience? And the answer is nothing at all, because you're not opening yourself up to the beauty and the majesty. You might, look around and go, oh, look at those mountains. But that's just looking at it. It's not beholding. Dottie said to be in awe, so if you're in awe, that means the thing that you are looking at has an effect on you. And Wilma said that if you're beholding it, then it pulls you in. And you have, it's almost like you're in some kind of connection to it.
A beautiful sunset.
Oh, beautiful sunsets.
Cloud formations. It can seem so beautifully out here
Yeah.
in this area. That always thrills me.
I loved when we moved here and I could just watch the clouds and the fog get trapped in the mountains and just kind of hang there. And so I would drive to work, and it was so funny. The first few weeks I lived here, and I would listen kind of to the morning radio, and they'd give the weather report, and they would say, the clouds are hanging around the mountains, that the fog is settling in, but it'll burn off by mid-morning. And they said it like every day. And it was just, I still think it's so cool just to see, like, there's a cloud, like when I come in on 26, like between Jupiter and Flat Rock, or Flat Creek, I'm sorry, between the Jupiter and Flat Creek exits on the east side, it's like there's always clouds trapped in those little mountains. It's just lovely to see.
That makes you think about that verse 1.
Oh, the earth is the Lord's.
First one.
Yeah, absolutely. What else we think?
When my husband Bob died, there was, when we buried the ashes, there was 25 cardinals up in the tree above the, where we
Wow.
buried him. And so now, every time I see a red bird, it's like he's telling me everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah, that's quite a cloud of witnesses.
Oh, they were.
It's amazing.
I've never seen anything.
No. That's special. That's special. Right.
If anyone wants to know the answer to it, we talk about these beautiful clouds and how much rain they hold to rain on the earth. Does anybody explain to you or anybody know what holds them up there? Why are the clouds suspended like they are?
That's a question for a meteorologist. It's a great question.
Yes. They say that they weigh tons.
Right.
But yet they hang there.
Yeah, excellent question.
Yes.
So I love that idea of beholding, how it pulls us in whatever we're looking at, and it has an effect on us. So now let's think about that in terms of so let's say we're beholding the earth, which is the Lord's. We are keeping a watch over it as stewards that we've been given responsibility for. So what happens when things get hard, when difficult things happen in nature that will then put people at risk or creatures at risk, like pollution of rivers that pollutes the drinking waters of families in a town, or flooding or wildfires, heat advisories, drought, species loss. How would beholding, if we are beholding, how would that affect us when we hear about those things happening somewhere?
Well, you're saddened by it.
Yeah.
You see the flooding and the different weather conditions across the states on the news every night, but we've got a beautiful day. Yeah, I think we should be sad when we see people who are trapped on the roofs of their house because the floodwaters have risen. Yeah, I mean, nobody likes looking at those stories, but if they're happening and people are suffering, then, if we are going to love our neighbor and be stewards of God's house that we are guests in, then we need to know, we need to watch it, and then if we're beholding, it will affect us and we'll feel that sadness.
That's an opportunity to help. We always say, Lord, use me today, but then, do we really mean it?
That's a great question. If we are truly beholding and it compels us to respond, what about if we see bad things happening where there are fires and damage and floods? What's that? Mudslides. Yeah. If we are really beholding, then it should compel us to respond in some way.
Especially areas hit in devastation with tornadoes and hurricanes and these storms, which one's brewing now, I think.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah.
We should have prayed about it earlier. I forgot to check what the status is now of the hurricane off the coast of Louisiana. I don't know, has it hit land? Does anyone know yet? If it's, I know it was approaching.
I heard earlier that it was about 4 hours maybe now.
Okay.
From then.
Okay.
So it's probably maybe already hit.
Okay. Well, then, those are scary days. When you know it's coming, and you watch the sky get dark, and you have the TV on, and you hear the beeps, and you're just watching the radar, and it's getting closer to your town. Yeah, that is tense. That's tense.
When Katrina hit, I heard somebody ask a young man why he didn't get out of there. He said, I'm paycheck to paycheck, where do you suggest that I go?
Yeah, what's he gonna do?
think those are proper responses if you are beholding creation. And remember, people are a part of that creation. So if you're not just looking at something, but if you're really beholding, if you're really aware, if you've let God give you that kind of Jesus vision, then you should feel something. And I wonder if that's why people don't want to hear or accept bad news like that, because it makes us sad, and nobody likes feeling sad. Nobody likes feeling sad. And I'll confess that if there's a story on the news and it's really, really sad, and I've had a long day, I'll change that station. Because I just can't hear it. Nobody likes being sad. Nobody likes hearing bad news. But if we're going to take seriously our job to be stewards of creation and to love our neighbors, then we can't just ignore it. It is okay to say, I've had a long day, I'll look into that later. We can't ignore it forever. If there are people who are suffering from mudslides or floods or wildfires, whatever it is, if we're really loving our neighbor, then we should say, well, what can I do about it? What can I do about it? And you know, oftentimes there's not much that we can do about it when we're sitting in our living room. Maybe we can donate some funds to disaster relief. That helps. But then that's a really good short-term way to address those disasters. But then we can start thinking more long-term. How could we change our behavior as a society to, prevent people from living in areas that are at risk? Is there a way to alleviate the risk or protect people from getting scammed into buying houses that are in flood plans? Just kind of, what's some long-term things? How can we help prevent those bad things from happening? Or what do we need to do? Are there ways that we've kind of dropped the ball? And is there something we can speak up about and say, oh, maybe we should, from now on, maybe we can be a little more mindful of what, I think of like, a few years ago, Flint, Michigan, all the people in that town found out all their water was like polluted and corroded. What's that? Lead, yeah, there's lead in all the water in the town. And so, let's start thinking ahead. Let's not wait until a disaster happens to say, what can we do about it now that the bad thing's already happened? Sure, we want to help if people are in help that day, but isn't it more responsible to prevent those things from happening in the future? So think about that in terms of our own Christian walk, our own discipleship process of maturing as followers of Jesus, as stewards of God's creation, and as people who demonstrate a Christian witness to others who are watching. How does responding to people and places at risk become a part of our Christian witness and spiritual growth? Can you see how those should be connected? A few weeks ago, someone had made the comment, and we talked about it a lot, on how 1,000 years ago, it was the Christian church who was at the forefront of making sure everybody took care of God's creation. Come on now, people, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, so hey, pick up that trash, man. But over the last decades or centuries or something, it seems that the Christian church has abdicated
that really important job, and other people have stepped up to say, hey folks, we gotta keep this place clean, we live here too. And so I think, going back to that point, it is important to our Christian witness for other people to see us saying, we care about this world, we care about the water your kids drink, we care about the air that you breathe, we care about the river that flows through our community. We care about it because it's our job, because we believe God has made it, and this is the Lord's, and we are stewards, caretakers. That's why we care about it. That is such a powerful witness today. Oh my goodness. So many Christians have let that go. And in place of other work or focuses or priorities, and those can be good too, but gosh, have we dropped that ball, and how powerful it would be for others, for non-Christians, to see us saying, oh no, this is important. Obviously. I think it would go a long, long way in our witness, in our testimony. It might even raise a few eyebrows. And non-churchgoers would say, don't you care about those Christians down the street actually care about the world? That's so weird. It's sad that someone would think it's weird today, but it would only be weird kind of in recent history, not in the distant past. So as we all mature in our Christian walk, that should be an effect. We should be affected to love our neighbors more. Or what were the like the two most important laws when the rich young man came up to Jesus and said, what are the two most important things? Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind, and then love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on those two. And I think taking care of the world we live in is about both of those two things. It's definitely about loving your neighbor. If you want to prevent your neighbor's house from being flooded away, or their drinking water from being contaminated. Have you seen videos of people who live near hydraulic fracturing sites where they can hold a lighter to their kitchen faucet and it'll burst into flame? I mean, if we love our neighbors, then we should, do something to protect and help them have abundant life. And if we love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, and mind, well, then we need to recognize that the earth is the Lord and everything in it. So I see this issue as really connected to both those two most important things that Jesus told us. Okay, well, in our last kind of 10 minutes, let's talk practical stuff. Let's talk tips. We've talked a lot, kind of big stuff about the whole world and big laws and big verses and big mindsets. So let's talk practical. What kind of daily practices could you or anyone start doing to develop or show a deeper appreciation for God's creation? Don't leave anything unsaid, because there's something that you might do that someone else hasn't thought of. So shout it out. What are daily practices that you or anyone can start doing to develop, show appreciation for God's creation?
Compost.
Oh, compost. Yeah. To put things to use and help them give new life to the stuff that we dump out. Yeah. That's giving the blessings we received back to the Lord and the earth and letting it keep producing new life. Yeah, that's great. Do you all compost yours?
Of course
You do? Okay. Well, everybody knows that now. And if you've ever thought, I wonder what's involved in composting, well, you know who to talk to right there. I've often wondered that myself. I just haven't got around to it.
Not real sophisticated.
And hey, it's organic, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the benefits that you have found from composting?
Well, it's less in the trash.
Less stuff goes in the trash to the landfill. Mhm.
And I guess it helps his garden grow.
It's a belief, and without being able to prove it, it's a belief that it is enhancing the garden soil.
Yeah.
By tilling it back in.
Mm-hmm.
Once the piles work down a little bit, you flip them a few times. You spread them
I
out,
don't do
till them in.
It does seem dirty. You got worms? Worms in the compost? Do you have like earthworms?
Not no, I don't intentionally put them in there, but there's earthworms all
They enjoy it.
around my yard.
We live in the woods.
Sure. Neat. Okay, other stuff. Daily practice, yes.
You know, we've talked about how companies have ruined the environment and all that. We have 2 grocery chains in Weaverville that when you see the managers there, you need to say thank you for helping to take care of the people of Madison County.
Oh, yeah?
They donate all of their, almost out of date, all of their, like if there's a bag of apples and one apple is rotten, they can't take that rotten apple out and sell the other.
Mm.
So they have all of that. Every Monday morning, I go down to Madison County, and there's about 40 boxes about this big. And when I open them, I have no clue what's inside that box.
Mm-hmm.
Could be potatoes with 1 rotten potato,
Mm.
apples with 1 rotten apple, squash, and have a 3-pack and one's bad. Well, underneath my table, I have called pig boxes, and I sort through all of that. I walk away and the fruit flies are following.
Sure.
Publix and Aldi donates everything. If they have a whole carton of cottage cheese and 1 carton gets smushed, well, they will donate the whole thing.
Huh.
So we have refrigeration, and we have the people of Madison or anyone that is needing groceries to come down, and they can have free groceries of their choosing, of their picking. But the bad things, we do not throw that in the trash. It goes into the pig boxes. And the little farmers from Madison come down and get the pig food. They're glad to get it. And I found out that pigs love avocados.
Avocados, really?
Yeah.
Pigs love
What they do with that seed, they're like, we don't know these, but they love them. But, so nothing is wasted, but those 2 companies in Weaverville help to feed the downtrodden, those who are having a hard time. And I've been doing this for 5 years, and my hat's off to those 2 companies, Publix and Aldi. They make sure they give us their bread that's gonna be out of date tomorrow, and everybody eats stale bread.
Mhm.
And so, that they, you know, they do that for Madison County, and I'm so appreciative, and then nothing goes to waste. Those companies have huge dumpsters in the back, they could just dump it and be clear, but they don't, they donate it, they give it and everything. And I've learned also, this is kind of off the thing, but don't judge everybody that comes and asks for food. Because there's some young men that will come down there to ask for food, and your first thought would be, well, you're young and strong, you should be working. They are working, but their paycheck is not enough to buy groceries right now and everything their kids need. So they have, a man told my daughter on Monday, he said, I have been humbled 2 times. God has brought me to this place, and he said, I'm so appreciative of the things that y'all do. But those 2 companies, Aldi and Publix, take care of most of the people in Madison County.
That is
need food.
fantastic. That is so good on so many levels. Like you said, they're not wasting resources and just making more trash in the world, but they are helping hungry folks be fed. When I was hungry, you fed me. When did we ever see you hungry, Lord? Well, it's whatever you did for the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me. That is wonderful. I love that. Other things. Other little things, big things. That's a great ministry too.
Don't buy stuff you don't need.
Don't buy stuff you don't need. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. What? Yes. That's right. Yes. Oh man. Somebody should tell my basement that. My basement has a real problem. It has spent its life buying stuff it does not need. Yeah, don't buy stuff you don't need. Or if there's something you do need, maybe there's a way you can find it at, Habitat Restore, so that it doesn't go in the landfill, you save a little money, you get some good use out of some item, so that it's not wasted.
Well, I think it's important to recycle as well as compost.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
decide what not to send to the landfill.
Yeah.
I'm huge on recycling.
Yeah, and these days, it's so much easier to recycle, because you just dump all the recyclables in the one big bin, somebody takes it at the end of your driveway, you don't have to separate glass and plastic and paper, yeah. So, no excuse for that, dump it all in. Yeah. Although you do have to be, side note, responsible about the things that you do recycle, because if something that is not recyclable gets put into a bin, then sometimes that whole bin cannot be recycled, and it just goes back into a landfill somewhere. Just something about the ways that the machines kind of process what they get. One bad item can kind of spoil a whole batch. So, gotta be mindful and check it out and know, look at the little numbers on the triangles, and like, okay, it's a 2, I can put that in, that's fine. Yeah. Other little things? I try to be mindful of the energy that I use at the house or here at the church. Sure, primarily because I have to pay for it. It's a big incentive. But also, I don't want to waste energy if I don't need to. Maybe we could use a fan, maybe we can open a window. Maybe I can, in the summer, maybe in the winter, I can just put on an extra layer. Just trying to be a little more mindful and save money. I remember 20 years ago when those curly Q light bulbs just started coming out, the CFL compact fluorescent light bulbs, and not a lot of people were using them, but Sarah's grandfather, who was in his 90s at the time, was one of the earliest people I saw putting them in his house. And he wasn't, one of those stereotypical tree-hugging hippies or something. He was a child of the Depression who fought in World War II, and just the hardest working man I ever met. And I said, "Oh, Grandpa, you got those curly Q light bulbs?" He said, "Yeah, it saves me money. It saves energy. It's the right decision." And I went, "Oh, okay, it works." It was a win-win. It was a win-win. Well, what about not just as individuals, because those are all good tips and suggestions for us as individuals. What about as a community? What things could our church do to show more appreciation and responsibility for creation? What could we do together? Are we going to write down a good idea?
Were there cleanup days or picking up stuff out of the river? A group from church could volunteer.
Yeah, that's a great idea, to keep our ears out for any cleanup days that happen in our area, kind of the river keepers kind of work that clean up the rivers. I know that the nature park, like the Town Works, welcomes people to help clean up that area as well. So yeah, community cleanup days. Wouldn't it be something if a passerby or a family or like a journalist or something was covering cleanup day on the river? "Hey, what group are you from?" "Oh, I'm from First Baptist Church, Weaverville. It's just really important to us that we take care of God's creation and keep our waters clean as we love our neighbors and respect what God has given us." Oh, I mean, that, again, one of the best witnesses and testimonies that there could be. What a great impact that would be. What else as a community, as a body of Christ together, could we do to show good appreciation for creation?
One thing that we are doing is that we have the dishes that we use now, that, where we're not just throwing everything away, where we
Mhm.
wash, you know, we have the plates, the bowls, the glasses, and then we use those, even when we had the showers, recently for our newlyweds, we
Mhm.
use those things as well, so that we are not just throwing more things into the trash.
Good, good. We try to be mindful about what we use and not just using plastic just to throw it away, like the kind of single-use plastic. Is it worth it? Yeah, it's easier because you don't have to put something in the dishwasher, but is that 10 minutes of when you're eating that cake, is it worth making trash in God's world forever with that fork? Maybe not. Maybe using one you can reuse and wash again.
I think turning off the lights, that always bothers me. I'm very
Mhm.
conservative about that. When you see the lights left on the Sunday school hallway and nobody's down there.
Yeah, that should be a family rule in everybody's household. Last one out of the kitchen, turn the lights off.
Yeah.
Last one out of the Sunday school, last one out of fellowship hall. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm not the only dad in here who, if they walk in, the kitchen light's on, nobody's in there, oh man. I mean, it's like the Warren Commission restarts again. Like, who did that? There's nobody in here. I'm gonna get done,
My
Yeah.
daddy did that.
That's right, yeah, we're gonna find out. Who's leaving that light on? Oh yeah, that's like full dad mode. It's like, well, maybe you need to be paying for this electric, yeah.
Daddy yelled, every light in this house is on. It's not mean to be conservative.
Yeah.
Fanatical about it.
Good. And as kids, children are just naturally not as aware of all the world around them because they are just kids and they're little and they're very hyper-focused on what's in front of them. And so, as adults, it's our job to help those kids grow into humans who are aware of things that are around them, to be aware of how their actions, words, activities affects the people around them. And so that goes back to our responsibility in taking care of God's creation to help other people learn that kind of awareness. Because it's like I always say, everybody grows up on the outside, but doesn't always grow up on the inside. So maybe we need to help some folks be a little more aware. And they can learn to watch out or turn that light off, or, you need to throw that in the trash, et cetera, et cetera. All right, here's the last question for the night. I read a story where a pastor said a kid, he was preaching on the creation story in Genesis 1. And after the service, a kid walked up to him and said, "Pastor, I enjoyed the sermon about the 7 days of creation in the story, but what did God do on the 8th day?" And the pastor didn't quite know what to say. What would you say? Any good answers? So,
Beatles had a song, 8 Days a Week.
So here's what the pastor said. The pastor said, "Well, I suppose God went back to work." I think that's a good answer.
Yes.
So it should make us think about what kind of work would God have gone back to?
Yes.
The earth is the Lord's and everything in it,
Yes.
the world and all who live in it.
Yes.
So if God went back to work after making that great world, then I bet taking care of it and keeping it safe and clean for the creatures, the beloved creatures that were made in God's image who are living in it. So if that's the work that God is up to, that should be the work that we are up to. Last word, Ray.
It's all said that when God created man, he stepped back, he thought, I can do it better than that. So he finished more.
Fair enough.
Yes.
No argument here. No
Yes.
argument here. Well, I hope that you have been inspired and challenged. I hope you've heard some good tips, some good things to think about. So remember those 2 most important commandments Jesus told us, and remember what our job is as Christians and as stewards So go out and be that great witness. Give that great testimony so that others might know.